Hello, my name is Morgan Gray, and welcome back to the Afrocentric Podcast.
My life in the sunshine. Everybody loves the sunshine. Sunshine. Everybody loves the sunshine. Sunshine.
We don't funk with racism. We don't funk with people who don't support the LGBTQ plus community. And baby, we damn sure don't funk with anybody who don't love a beautiful black queen, baby. You see this tape?
When they go low, I go lower.
You don't let nobody act black and then go home and be white.
I got 2 pistols and a pit bull. Me. That's all I need.
It only takes a little bit of white brainwash to activate the coon chip in the average Negro.
You think Harriet Tubman was walking around with a fucking nice shiny fucking dress on with a fucking crown on her head when she was taking slaves to freedom?
And a lot of white folk have demonstrated eloquently that they don't have no sense.
And we are back with season 3 of the Afrocentric Podcast. You know, a lot of people didn't think we would make it here, but I'm very glad to prove them wrong. Now, the title of this episode is A Message from Farmer John, and it is featuring Mr. John Jones. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Yes. Thank you, Morgan. I'm John Jones, and I'm a native of Laurel, Mississippi, Jones County, south part of Mississippi, and we have a family farm that's still in our family. My great-grandfather secured the property back in 1885, and it's been in the family ever since then. So we're glad to be here to talk about farming and agriculture and things of this nature.
You want to get some of your background with farming?
Some of my background with
because you
farming?
was like real official.
My background is I grew up on a family farm, like I said, down in South Mississippi. And after graduating from high school, I majored in agriculture, got a degree in agriculture education from Alcorn Agricultural and Mechanical College then. It's now Alcorn State University. Upon graduation, I secured a job with the United States Department of Agriculture. At that time, the agency was the Soil Conservation Service. Now it is a Natural Resources Conservation Service. And I was able to go to Kentucky and work, and I worked there for 36 years with USDA. And fortunately, had a lot of successes. In 1973, Morgan, I became the first black supervisor for USDA in Kentucky, and one of the first blacks in the Deep South, managing an office of staff and having total responsibility for the conservation operations for Scott County, Kentucky. It had about 182,000 acres, so I had responsibility for that particular county. Then I was able to be promoted to, in 1992, I was promoted to the position of the USDA 1890 liaison officer. That was a position at Kentucky State, where I worked not only with Natural Resources Conservation Service, but all of the agencies of USDA. Working with the faculty and the staff there in agriculture at Kentucky State to bring in additional resources from USDA to that 1890 land grant institution. And I stayed there for 2 years, and then my agency asked me to come back. And when I came back to my agency, I went to Lexington, Kentucky as an assistant state conservationist for outreach, operation, and management. And also I was the first black to assume that position. And stay there until my retirement. But in 1997, the state conservationists that had a responsibility for the entire state of Kentucky, everything, retired. So I had to fill in and assume those duties for about 4 months in 1997. So I had total responsibility for all of the natural resource and conservation program in the state of Kentucky for that 4-month period. And during that time, I made some significant changes. I was able to, I felt, help some people, especially African Americans. More than once I go in some position, I was blessed and fortunate, and thank God for being oftentimes the first. But each time I went, I always looked at the policy, what was written before I got there, what was written before a person of my color got there. And I would look at those policies and whatever way I could change those policies, definitely to help people, I did. And I was able to make sure some people got promoted, make sure that people, got rewarded for their work. And those are some of the things, that I'm proud of. And I stayed there and worked there in Lexington until 2006, and I retired officially 2006 from USDA, and just sort of took it easy for a while, and did some community service work there in Central Kentucky, Georgetown, Scott County area, and then we decided to move back to Mississippi. We sent our son and daughter back to Mississippi. We sent them back to Alcorn for get their degrees, and once they had been down for about 2 years, they called back and said, "Hey, nothing against you and mom, dad, but we're going to stay in Mississippi. We're not coming back to Kentucky." So we moved back. So a lot of people are leaving Mississippi, but my son and daughter fell in love with it, and so we are here. And we have one granddaughter. I have one granddaughter, and don't tell my son and daughter, but actually we moved back to be with our granddaughter.
It's powerful. We love it. Yeah.
Yeah, you're a grandchild, I bet. So it's a little bit about me.
Yeah, you make the black people look good out here. That's what I say. That's what I say when I think about myself. I carry my community on my back. See here.
Well, we have to.
Yes,
we have to.
Now, I'm really excited about this episode just because in the last 6 months I've moved up here to Oklahoma to work with the Black farmers as a year of service, and I have been indulged with the culture, and I've learned so much about the historical impact that the farmers within the Black community have had over the duration of history. This episode is going to be reflecting on a lot of things I've learned, as well as a lot of the work that you have done within our community. We're going to be dispelling common misunderstandings around agriculture and the African American community. Mr. Jones will be talking about some of the over and often overlooked global and STEM aspects of modern agriculture, which extends far beyond the regional practices. And he'll be talking about the rich history and the deep roots of agriculture and agribusiness, tracing their origins back to the ancient civilizations in Africa. I'm excited. Before we get into this conversation, is there anything you'd like to say?
Well, I would just like to say, as you stated, you just moved up here and started working with us in the agricultural community, and I just want to let everyone out there know that she has adapted really well.
Yeah.
I'm impressed with her. She's a exciting person to be around.
Yeah, I love too.
And everything. So, well, we learn from each other.
I be telling folks that I be down here with the farmers, and I love being with the farmers. I don't think nobody expected nothing like this around me. I really don't. But I'm happy to be here, and I'm happy to have you.
Well, we're glad you're here, and this is generational. You're the next generation to come on and carry the torch and be able to talk about this.
That's very true, and we're going to talk about it globally, because this episode and this podcast is a very globally loved and understood podcast. Now, please stay updated on our latest episodes and continue the conversation. We would like to encourage you to subscribe to our podcast. Your support is so crucial in amplifying the voices and experiences shared in the Afrocentric podcast space. I want to let you know that we value your feedback. Please take a moment to leave a comment or a review. Your thoughts are important, and your input is essential in shaping the content that we deliver and ensuring that we address the topics that you guys resonate. Now, thank you so much for choosing to be Afrocentric. Together, we can continue to shed light on the important issues celebrating Black culture and working towards a more inclusive future. Stay connected, stay engaged, and stay informed. And with that, let's hop into the next segment.
Let's get ready to rumble!
Ooh.
Shortcake!
Damn.
Y'all killing me with this.
All right. Now, I'm so excited to do this segment with you. For those who do not know, we play a little game, America's favorite game, that we like to call Fight, Marry, Kill African American Edition. Now, for those who do not know, it is a little twist on the classic game Fuck, Marry, Kill concept. And in this game, I'll be giving Mr. John a list of African American household names, and he must choose between fighting them, marrying them, and killing them. Are you ready?
This is a surprise, but I'll see what we can do.
Yeah, we love surprises. All righty. Fight, marry, kill. O.J. Simpson, Whitney Houston, and Medgar Evers.
Let's stop and fight.
Fight, marry, kill.
Fight, marry, kill.
Mm-hmm.
Marry.
Who you gonna marry?
His ideas, his thoughts,
Uh-uh.
his concept,
Uh-uh.
whatever.
Hold
Am I
on
looking
now.
at it wrong?
Yes, you're looking at it wrong.
Oh.
All right, I'm gonna give you 3 names, okay?
Okay.
The 3 names is O.J. Simpson,
Okay.
Whitney Houston,
Okay.
Medgar Evers.
Okay.
You gotta choose which one you want to fight. Do you want to fight O.J., Whitney, or Medgar? You want to marry O.J., Whitney, or Ever, or which one you want to kill?
Oh gosh.
Yeah, you take your time and let the Lord use you.
I say marry. I marry Whitney.
Why you gonna marry Whitney?
Because I don't want to fight OJ nor Medgar, and I don't want to kill either one of them.
Okay. Okay. So well, what about Whitney make you want to put a ring on it?
Just her style.
Oh.
Her style. Her confidence, the power she had with her voice.
You know, a lot of that confidence and power was fueled by crack. You know.
Whatever. There are other people out here that may have confidence and power and everything else that may be fueled by something we don't know either.
Yeah.
That may be underneath that has not surfaced.
It's definitely underneath.
Yeah, definitely. So, but then still, she was able to, just lift her voice, whether it was like crack or what. She was able to lift her voice to bring entertainment to a whole nation, to the world.
To several generations after her.
Children, our future. That should be the national anthem to a certain extent.
Well, thank you. You gonna
train them well and let them lead the way.
You gonna marry Whitney Houston? Is you gonna fight OJ, or is you gonna kill OJ? Is you gonna fight Medgar Evers, or you gonna kill Medgar Evers?
I will fight both of them.
You ain't gonna kill neither one of them. Which one you think you gonna win in the fight?
Oh, I know I'll win.
How you gonna win?
Because I'm a fighter.
You a fighter?
Yes.
Well, where you learn how to fight?
Growing up with 12 brothers.
You the oldest at the 12?
No, I'm next to the youngest at the 12.
Oh, so they were picking on you.
I had to fight the older one.
They was taller than you because you're a little man.
I'm about as tall as one in my family.
You lying?
I'm not lying.
Your parents must have been midgets. I mean, little people.
Well, they were small in stature, but they were large.
Spirit.
And ideals.
That's powerful.
They were large.
But it's powerful.
Yeah.
You gonna put your paws on OJ, and then you gonna take them paws on over to Edgar. I loved it. I enjoyed it.
Yeah, I don't believe in killing, so I can't. It would be hard for me to kill another person unless they became a threat to my family.
You don't think OJ could become a threat to your family?
I don't think so.
I'm finna leave you alone.
Not now. I mean, he can't be.
He can't. I mean, can't none of them be. They all in the upper room. They in the upper room.
So that's true. They're somewhere. They're somewhere. They're not.
They not here. No, they gone on to be with the Lord.
here somewhere else.
Amen. Well, I just want to thank you so much for playing this game, this America favorite
You
game.
didn't tell me I had to do something like that, though.
I know
that
it.
was
A surprise.
It was a surprise.
Happy birthday.
Thank you.
Yes, and thank you so much for playing this game, which is America's favorite game, Fight, Marry, Kill, African American Edition.
In Tuskegee, I said, well, they had a few. I said, well, what are you studying in agriculture? Agricultural technology. And what is that? So you come out with a degree. What was your degree in, Dr. Ridgely? Agricultural economics. And you're broke. Now wait. I was in the country called Belize. And there were some Christian Mennonites, white people from Europe who were living in southern Mexico and migrated into Belize. A family of about 20, a few families numbering 20 people, and they started with 20 acres of land. When I got down there, they had 120,000 acres. And they were feeding half of the country of Belize. So I said, I wanted to go meet them because we're farming now. We're not playing. We're farming. Now wait. We went up with them and we sat down and they went to the blackboard and they spoke German and they put a few German words up on the board that in my remembering my German, I knew some of the words. And I asked them, I said, well, how far did you all go in school? That was like a joke. They said, school? Oh, we went to the 8th grade. 8th grade? He said, yes, but we know how to count. Now listen to these Mennonite Christians. You are here in college and can't count. Look in your pocket, see what you got, and you could count it on one hand, maybe a finger or two. These people had money. Exactly. And they say if you get this education, you'll have money. That's a lie. Ask the brothers and sisters that got it. They don't have no money. They're scuffling to pay the debt. Over $1 trillion in debt America's students are. So you're a slave before you even get out of college. That's right. They make you pay. That's right. And if you don't pay, that's right. They begin to garnish your pay, and then they add little penalties. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. You're not free. Now look, they took us to their chicken coop, thousands and thousands of chickens. That's right. They took us to the grain factory. They produce grain, wheat, and whatnot. They took us to their dairy, showed us how they produce the milk and Would you like some ice cream? They said. Sat us down and gave us a little taste of their ice cream. And then we drove by, they had their bank and they were building houses and whatnot from selling food. Did you hear me? Yes, now, doctor, I know you a doctor in here. Got your PhD degree with a little cancer and a little problem with diabetes and high blood pressure. Yes, sir. Right, Doc? Mm-hmm. Doctors don't live hardly as long as their patients. Doctors obese, dying of a heart attack, eating McDonald's. Yes, sir. You mean, Doc, you don't know how to eat better than that? You a lawyer, but everybody eats. The pimp eats. The prostitute eats. Everything eats. And we ain't got no land producing no food to give health and well-being to ourselves. They're killing us all over the earth by killing our ability or will to farm. And then they come and give us the food that they produce, which is poison dressed up to look good. Oh, you have to listen. Yes, sir. America is for sale. The FBI headquarters in Washington was up for sale, $50 million. We could buy it and lease it back to them. People come in buying roads and toll roads, and America's in bad shape. And $1 trillion comes through our hands this year, they say. But we don't know how to pool any resources. So we could buy up thousands of acres of land and set up agribusiness. Now, all my preacher friends, what was the first profession mentioned in the Bible? See, God is something, man. He's showing you how to make your Genesis, and you won't listen. He did all this wonder in 6 days, and then he said, but there was no man to till the ground. Now the earth is here, but there has to be a man who knows how to not get economics. Economics will come when you work the land. This man is a trickster, boy. Yes, he gets you in all kind of research. You in agricultural research. Yes, sir. And what is that? We learning what bugs will kill this and what. You better learn what bug is killing you. And you better understand that you got an enemy that's wiping us out little by little.
All righty. So for the first question of the afternoon, Farmer John, can you please tell us about your journey into agriculture? Let us know what inspires you to become a farmer, as well as how did you find yourself in this field?
I guess what inspired me to become a farmer and go into the field of agriculture was pretty much my childhood, my upbringing. That's what I knew. Growing up in the 50s and 60s, that was a major enterprise that a lot of African Americans had in Mississippi. During that time, you didn't see that many doctors, that many lawyers, didn't have that many role models. But From the standpoint of agriculture, you saw people that were actually producing things to take care of themselves. To me, agriculture is a very independent profession, because if you're involved in agriculture, then you own the land, or you're associated with the land to produce the crop, to produce the animals. Once you do that, then they become yours, and you do not necessarily have to worry about going back to a particular supermarket. So whatever money that you have, you don't have to spend it in order to eat. You have it there. Also, growing up on the farm, we had everything that we needed. Like I say, it was a source of security, because we really did not have to want for anything. And I even tell the farmers today, Morgan, up here, that when you have land, when you have a farm, basically, you don't have to go to a park. You have it, you own it. You own your own park. Because you have trees, you have wildlife, you have streams, you have lakes. So, to me, agriculture is a very independent enterprise.
Let me ask you this. Did you come from a family of sharecroppers?
No, not while I was growing up. Now, one of my older brothers said my dad sharecropped back in the 40s.
If you don't mind me asking, can you tell the listening audience what sharecropping is and its relation to agriculture?
Yeah. Well, pretty much sharecropping is where someone may own the land, but do not have the labor, do not have the finances to be able to buy the seed and the fertilizer. So oftentimes, someone may own the land, may have a house on it. So there may be a family that do not own land, but then they may have children that can provide the labor to work and harvest the crops and take care of the livestock. So it's an arrangement that's made by the owner and another person, and they work that arrangement out at the beginning of the crop season. So the owner of the property may say, I'll let you sharecrop with me, and we plant 30 acres of cotton. And once the cotton is sold, then we'll split it 50-50 or 60-40, depending upon what arrangement is. And oftentimes, that has happened. That is a lot of African Americans were involved in agriculture or sharecropping, because oftentimes they did not own the property, but they stayed on someone else's property. And the black Irish sharecropping is that, back then in the 30s, 40s, 50s, a lot of African Americans were not that adept in reading, writing, math skills. So they would go and buy things and charge it, and they weren't good record keepers. So at the end, when it came time to sell up, the crop was sold, then the landowner would tell the African American, well, this did not bring this price, did not bring this price. And oftentimes he or she would be in debt at the end of the year, because they would have charged certain things, certain products, and then they did not have the money to pay for it. So they go into the next year in a deficit situation. And it became somewhat of a system that each year you got further and further in debt, and you never were able to break even. So, that is the negative stigma about it. But,
you have to pay tax on that money, what you borrow. Any money you borrow is 2 bits on a dollar. You know that.
No, go over that. In other words, when you borrow money from Senator Eastland, you've got to pay an interest?
Yeah, I had to pay interest on it.
Tell us about that. Go all the way through and tell us how that works.
Yeah, see, when I borrow it, just like I borrowed $30, well, I'm got to pay 2 bits on every one of them dollars I borrowed from him.
So they're not getting anything free. If they loan them money, they might have to pay that double instead of just paying maybe 10% on the dollar.
Tell us about what your family is going to eat until you get more.
Well, they'll eat some turnip greens and some cornbread. All I know, because I don't have anything else. And I don't have no money to buy nothing with. I don't have no job. I have been trying to get one, but I can't. And the boy there, I need money now for him. He finishing school. I got to pay that money off for him, in school. And he's graduating from high school trying to go to college.
Do you feel that your 7 children are getting enough food to eat right now, this week?
No, I don't think they is.
He can't choose the food if he doesn't have the money to buy the stamp. It would give him dignity if he had something he could do and then, had enough money that he could buy the stamps. But he can't hold up his head in dignity if he got to go up there and listen to people telling me, well, you better have some money, you better get you a job because you won't get the stamp for $3 next month.
Fortunately, we did not sharecrop. We had our own property. We did our own crops, and what we made was ours, so we did not go in with it anymore.
See, and that was a beautiful answer. You answered it very well. I come from a family of sharecroppers. So my grandmother and her husband, they sharecropped on the land for several years. And essentially what she did, my great grandmother, she ended up pulling her oldest kids out of school. So my granddaddy, he got pulled out of school in the 8th grade, and my great uncle, he got pulled out of school in the 3rd grade. So that was the highest education that they obtained. And that was the way that she was able to get them out of sharecropping, because all the money that they were making on the land, she was able to save and then pay back the owner of the land. So one day, the man who owned the land got very upset because she ended up paying off the debt.
Okay.
And he got super upset and chased them off of the land. And they had to leave every single thing behind. But they ended up relocating on the land that we own now. And now they own a large section of land that's divided amongst our family. And there they herded cattle, they grew cows, they raced horses, a lot of stuff. But yeah, that is how, in so many ways, a lot of African Americans were first introduced into agriculture. And I just think that's a fantastic way kind of to show how African Americans as well as Native Americans are truly connected to this land.
Yeah. Well, yeah, definitely, without a doubt. And also, the origin of it goes back after the Civil War, after the plantation had, the war, and African American had been freed from slavery. You still had the land there, but then the plantation owners did not have anyone to work the land. So that sharecropping system actually started during that particular time. And like I said, the gimmicks and the accounting processes always change. Like I said, to keep them in the hole, to keep them in the negative and stuff. And I commend your grandmother for what she did and how she was able to break out of that particular cycle.
Shout out to great grandma Maggie.
And if you of course, you were talking about Medgar Evers earlier, but Fannie Lou Hamer, who was a civil rights worker over in the Delta, she was sharecropping even as she was registered people.
Being one of 20 children, very poor family, sharecroppers in the state of Mississippi, I know what it's like to be hungry. I know what it's like to be without clothes. I know what it's like to be without food, to live in a 3-room house with no washroom facilities, just a 3-room shack. So in my earliest childhood, I remember one day I was playing beside this road, and the landowner drove up, and he asked me, could I pick cotton? And I told him I didn't know. I didn't know. At 6 years old, I just didn't know. So he told me, I want you to go out in the field, Fanny, and I want you to pick 30 pounds of cotton. And if you pick 30 pounds of cotton in a week, I'll carry you to my commissary store, and I'll let you get some of the things that you want to eat. So don't you like Cracker Jack? That was exciting because I'd never had them. So I went out in the field, and I told my parents, And my mother asked me, did I want to try it? And I told her I did. And she told me, said, now, we won't let you cheat. If you pick it, we'll say you picked it. But if you don't pick it, you don't get it. So this made me work very hard. But that week I did pick 30 pounds of cotton. That Saturday, the landowner did keep his promise. He carried me to this commissary store. He gave me some Cracker Jacks and cheese and the daddy wide leg sardines. But I didn't realize what he was doing other than that, because the next week I was tasked 60 pounds of cotton. By the time I was 13 years old, I was picking 200 and 300 pounds of cotton.
She had to leave in the middle of the night because the sharecropper, the owner told her to leave because she was trying to get people registered to vote. So, those type of situations, you have to, oftentimes, the sense of giving up something. But again, I tell young people wherever possible, buy your own property. My mom used to tell us, never buy a car and park it on someone else's property. Buy your car and park it on your own property.
Because my mom be talking about that too. You know how the young folks, they be having them nice vehicles, box Chevys and Scat Packs and Hellcats, park it right outside a trailer. Now ask me, do that make any sense?
Not necessarily. But although my mom told us this and taught us that, but when we first came out, got our job, we had rent to pay for, other things, car notes to pay for and everything. So we couldn't park it on but our goal, it had been instilled in us. It had been instilled. So our goal was start saving to buy your own property. And I'm proud to say, every one of my brothers and sisters own their own home, did not have to rent from anyone.
Well, I always say that Mississippi is ranked number 1 in Black ownership throughout the entire country. So that is one of the positives about living here, and it's something that I feel like a lot of the Black communities throughout the state have instilled within our generations. Plus, there's access to so much land down here. Nevertheless, who really inspired you to become a farmer? Like, was there anyone that you really looked up to, someone that you just think of and was like, dang, I want to be just like him when I grow up?
Well, again, if I have to go back, actually, my mom and my grandfather.
What they was out there doing?
What they were out there doing? Well, my dad died when I was 8 years old.
Real?
Yes. So my mom had to take over the responsibility of the farm. Take on the responsibility of the farm.
That's a lot. How many acres y'all had? Do you know?
We had 40 acres, but then we had access to about 90 acres because we had family members that had moved north, so we farmed some of their property.
And also, it was just y'all? Y'all was farming by hand?
We were farming by hand with mules and by hand.
Lord have mercy.
I'm tired of this, Grandpa.
That's too damn bad! You keep digging!
Well, excuse me.
But hey, back then, what else we didn't have podcasts, so you had to. That was just part of the growing up. That was part of making ends meet. So, but she, I remember when my dad died, people told her to sell the farm and move to the city. That's what they told her. And I remember distinctly, she said, "No, we're going to keep this farm. It's paid for, and we're going to, we're going to farm it." And I saw how she was able to work and how she was able to do and how she was able to accumulate. And I guess I was inspired by that, her hard work and her villages and her dedication to keeping the property, to managing the livestock and the crops and the natural resources. My grandfather was he lived right down the street from us. His farm was there, and we used to go down and visit him and just saw his knowledge of the land, of the animals, and we call him a veterinarian. He was somewhat the community animal doctor. So he, someone had a sick animal, he would go and work on it and give it his whatever medicinally that he needed. So he was that person. So that sort of led me into it. And then while I was in high school, I remember of they call it now FFA, but back then it was still segregated. So it was NFA, New Farmers of America. And that was a black organization. FFA was a white organization. So my vocational agriculture teachers, they were somewhat instrumental in seeing. And I would see black people owning property and having livestock. And I wanted to be a part of that also.
Mr. John, what y'all grew on the farm? Y'all was shucking peas and such?
We're shelling peas. You shuck corn. We were shucking corn. We were shelling peas. We were picking cotton. We were feeding cattle, the hogs. We had timber.
Look at here. Look. I got beans, greens, potatoes, tomatoes, lamb, rams, hogs, dogs, chicken, turkeys, rabbits, you name it.
So we had a very diverse operation, and that's what, and I, like I said, that's why I admired my mom, that she was able to keep things going throughout the year, because when you're farming, you just don't go every week and pick up a check. So you have to have things going on. So we had chicken. She would sell eggs. She would make milk and butter, sell that. She would cut, 4 or 5 acres of timber to keep things going. We made sugar, molasses, syrup out of sugar cane.
Mm-hmm.
So those are the type of things that I saw. And like I said, I saw the independence. I saw the independence that farming had. We really didn't have to ask anyone for anything, because we grew our own food. We had a large garden. We grew black-eyed peas, sweet potatoes, okra, turnips, mustard, and we ate good.
Yeah. They just reminded me of a book that I had to read when I was in grad school. It's called The Slave's Cause, and it is about how enslaved people over in Jamaica, when they were on the plantations, about the different products that they grew, as well as everyday resistance while they were on the farm, right? When you were talking about the amount of land as well as picking cotton, it was very normal for especially like black women to be able to pick about 90 to 200 pounds of cotton a day. And if they had already met that expectation, they would always be expected to have to pick that amount every single day, day in and day out, right? Specifically with this book, which is located, like I said, in Jamaica, they had a lot of tobacco fields over there, right? And as you're picking and you're gathering tobacco, you can become ill from touching the plant because it's very harmful.
The nicotine.
Yes, it'll I believe turn your fingers green. I know that there's some type of poison it can kill you essentially. So there were certain ways and certain processes that they would have to go about to be able to protect themselves, pick and pull it. But when I talk about like everyday resistance, about how these enslaved people would specifically make sure to do things to slow down the process or to halt the process to be able to give themselves an opportunity to rest. And I always think about, rest as a form of resistance, as a way to push back. It's actually a privilege as a black person to be able to rest, right? So thinking about how when those enslaved people would come in contact with so much like burdening labor, and they would go about breaking tools, breaking hoes, go about like under lightly packing or overpacking things in order to make it seem like they had picked way more greater amounts than what they actually did. And just kind of thinking about the amount of tumultuous work they had to do, as well as the amount of trickery that they went about doing in order to get what they want, so they could find some type of solace in this lifetime.
Yeah, and I never had to pick cotton for someone else. Okay, the cotton that we picked was our own cotton
Yeah.
on our farm. But in college, talking to guys that grew up in the Delta that had to pick on plantation and stuff like this, and I heard them talking about some of the same type thing. Actually pouring water down in the cotton to make it heavier, so that they seem like they met their quarter. Or going out as while they were putting sand in between the cotton, because these sacks you really couldn't see it.
No.
So using different ways, and they came up with creative techniques and ways in order to survive and make the burden a little lighter on their back and everything. But fortunately, like I said, that's one of the things I felt blessed, is that what we did was our own. We didn't have to do it for anyone else. We didn't have to depend upon anyone else. And that, like I said, that gave me a sense of independence.
You know how to grow your own food, you will never starve. Not only because you can eat from your land, but you can also sell that produce to other African people. So whether we're dealing with economics, whether we're dealing with entrepreneurship, whether we're dealing with diet, whether we're dealing with health, whether we're dealing with a usable intergenerational skill, there's no future forward for Black America without agriculture.
In your opinion, what are some of the biggest misunderstandings or misconceptions that the Black community has about agriculture and its role in society?
I think the biggest misunderstanding they have about agriculture is that it's not a profession, that it is it's hard work, it's demeaning, more or less, and it's not that. Agriculture is it's highly technical, highly scientific. A lot of the STEM discipline comes along in agriculture, and people don't realize the ingenuity that goes on, the creativity, and just the knowledge that a farmer must have in order to produce a crop. And it's not that demeaning, because it's a professional enterprise.
Explain.
Well, a farmer today has to be a mechanic. He has somewhat to be a weatherman. He has to be a scientist, animal scientist, a soil scientist. He has to know how to monitor the crops. He has to deal with, now agriculture becoming a very precise profession. And what I mean by that is that they're positioning their land and their fields so that if they have to irrigate, because water is so precious now, that once they irrigate the crop, that plant's going to be able to consume pretty much every ounce of water that they put on that field for irrigation purposes. It's becoming so precision now that they're using technology like drones that can actually fly over a 200-acre soybean field. And that drone has sensors on it that will tell the farmer what area of the field is dry and the plants under stress that need irrigating, and what area of the field still has enough soil moisture that the plant isn't under stress and you don't have to irrigate it. So in the past, they would have to go out and irrigate the entire 200-acre field. But now, with the precisionness of it, they can only go out and they only may need to go out and irrigate 20 acres. So that means more profit in their pocket, less water that's being taken out of the aquifer that's not going to be wasted, less energy that the irrigation pumps won't have to put out in order to irrigate that. So it is a complex profession, and a farmer nowadays have to have computer skill, have to have GIS skill, have to know how to deal with animals, have to be able to deal with the rain, have to be able to deal with flooding. So so the concept that people may have about it not being highly analytical and all these type things. That's not necessarily true.
You know, when you talk about certain things like that, it really reminds me of Booker T. Washington, and the Booker T. Washington W.E.B. Du Bois debate that happened several years ago. And Booker T. Washington basically really argued that a lot of African American people should be in spaces, you know, like agriculture or farming or welding, doing things with their hands. Like, do you feel like that correlates with farming, and as well as where do you think the shift changed where black people started to migrate out of farming?
Yeah, I've read about the debate between Washington and the Bulls and everything, and so Washington said, "Hey, we like I said, we need to be tradesmen, we need to be vocationalists, we need to do things with our hand." The Bulls said, "We need to get our civil rights, we need to get our social things." So, which one were right? Which one were wrong? I think both of them were right.
They both had a very strong point.
Yeah, but I guess more African Americans sort of wanted to get away from the farm.
Yeah.
So, which started that great migration. When we did that, then we left a lot of the skilled position that were African Americans. We got away from them: bricklayer, carpenter, masonry, animals, taking care of the animals. We left those. Now, we don't have any of those part of those skills within the African American community.
No.
So if you want a plumber, you're not going to find
many plumbers.
If you want a bricklayer, you're not going to find.
Then you got the baby boomer generation getting ready. They passing away slowly, so it's a lot of space and opportunity open, but no one wants to learn the trades, and that does include farming.
Yeah, but getting back to the migration situation, again, it's agriculture was an influence in that, without a doubt, because of the first cotton picker, mechanical cotton picker, basically started displacing African Americans that was in the field picking cotton. So when the cotton picker came in, they didn't need the cotton pickers. So a certain amount of African Americans lost their job because of the mechanization of the cotton picker.
Ain't that the same thing that happened to the cotton gin?
Cotton gin. Well, the cotton gin was basically created a need for African Americans because you had to pick the cotton to be able to bring it into the gin to be able to make it. So the cotton gin basically increased the need for African Americans to be able to come and pick the cotton and get it in. But the cotton picker replaced the cotton pickers in the field. So you follow me?
Mm-hmm. I'm here.
So when they did that, then they didn't have the labor skill to do anything else. Okay. Back in the late 40s, early 50s, the introduction of herbicides. So although you didn't need them to pick the cotton, but you still need them out in the field to chop the cotton to keep the weeds from coming. But then when herbicide came along, that became another displacement that you didn't need the people out in the field chopping the cotton. So all those type things led from leaving the farm and leaving rural Mississippi, Alabama, Arkansas, going to the northern cities, part of the Great Migration. So agriculture has been somewhat of an influence in the displacement of people. Because of the technology and industrialization of it.
And when you talk about the migration, I just think that's so interesting because I do meet young men from places like Chicago that have never seen like even just lush green grass or trees or even just the midnight sky full of stars. So that just shows you the amount of distance that has happened.
It does. I was talking about being at Kentucky State. One year we had a summer program. We brought students in from even Pine Woods Country Life School here in Mississippi. We brought them in from California, Virginia, Chicago, and we were taking them on a field trip from Frankfort, Kentucky to Harrisburg, Kentucky, which is about 30 miles difference. And we were on the bus riding through all this countryside, and there was one young lady that was on there. She was just at all, just seeing the openness, seeing the grass and the trees and everything. And she had not seen that. And she was a junior, senior in high school. And, you know, that's the first time that it really dawned on me that city life, you miss so much. You miss so much. Because if you live downtown, if you live in Chicago, you have to drive 40, 50 miles, 60 miles to get out into rural Illinois and rural Indiana. And we have that every day. That's going back to what I said earlier. When you own your farm, you own your own park. You know, you own your own wildlife. You own your own zoo. You know, so you don't have to. You see that, and you become caretakers of it. And this is just something that we've lost appreciation for.
I feel like that also answers the question of, is the world overpopulated too? Because they say there's no room to live, and then I be down here in Mississippi and I be seeing just miles and miles of just open land, space and opportunity. And I be like, how we overpopulated when it ain't nothing but barracudas and raccoons living out there?
Well, yeah, but a person so choose to reside where they want to, but also that's when you live in those areas, you know, they talk about the incidence of asthma being higher in those areas because of the pollution in the air. You don't have the quality of air that we have here.
Yeah.
Because so there's a trade off. If you want to live there, then that's a trade off.
It also goes to allergies as well. You know, as a result of global warming, there's a rise in allergies because plants are overproducing pollen. So as a result, it's causing people who have never had issues with allergies to have allergy issues, and people who have already had existing conditions for it to be way worse.
Yeah, increase it. Yeah, there's a whole lot. You know, there's a dynamic going on within our environment. You know, within our system, and some people are deniers of it. Some people are trying to work to see how things are. You know, down in Florida, they're already building the highways down. They're building them 2 feet higher than what they were
because the water,
because of the increased rise in the water.
See,
yeah.
we're gonna talk about it, but look, what is Louisiana gonna do? What is the coast of Mississippi and Alabama gonna do when the water rises? Because the ice caps are melting. The polar bears gonna be homeless, and then the people, they gonna be losing out on house. Even with California, I don't know if you heard about it, but California, when it comes to like house insurance, a lot of the insurance companies have pulled out of the state, and they not giving them folks no refund, no money, because they saying that we can't control uncontrollable acts of God. That's what they putting it down there. Like, what is a person supposed to do?
Yeah, yeah, I heard about that. Even in Mississippi, if you have property down
on the coast,
yeah, there are things going on there. So nature's changed, and politicians, elected officials, the decision makers they are not keeping up with what like I said, they are denying certain things. So somewhere along the way, my opinion is like the outer reef, Cape Hatteras and places like that should not allow people to build. Once it's been destroyed by a hurricane, should not go back in and build again because it's going to happen. So you pay for something that's going to repeat again. And most of those areas are just inhabited by, rich people. So poor people subsidizing because they want to live off the coast of North Carolina, coast of Florida Keys. So those are the type of conversations no one wants to
have. You mentioned the global and STEM aspects of modern agriculture. Can you elaborate on how agriculture intersects with these areas and why it's crucial to recognize its intersectional and international scope?
well, as we move forward into the 21st century, globalization of agriculture has already happened. It's going to become even greater now. I think I was reading somewhere the population of the earth now with about 8.5 billion people.
Mm-hmm.
And as you look at that 8.5 billion people, they have to be fed every day. And then when you look at from an agricultural standpoint, just thinking about here in America and even over the world, those people still have to have some place to live. So you have to go out and build housing for them. You have to build new infrastructure. So every time you build that, you're taking more land out of production. So you may not have enough land eventually to feed 10 billion people.
Mm-hmm.
So how are you going to do that? What you're going to do that? America right now is feeding a lot of the world because of our productivity. But as it looks, there may be other parts of the world that can grow a certain crop or that can grow a certain amount of meat for the world. So the globalization, the sharing of this technology with other countries, because the land that we're having here in America is becoming smaller and smaller. So some of the less developed nations now may have to pick up the production of agriculture. So now your global company like Archer Daniel Midland, your Cargill, and we're beginning to see that now, even as you look at the Amazon rainforest. If you read and look, there are thousands and thousands of acres of the rainforest being cut down each year for the production of food and agriculture, which the rainforest has been called the earth lungs
Because of the trees.
Because of the trees, right. But now you're taking those trees out, and the carbon dioxide that they were catching is going to become even more prevalent into the atmosphere.
You know
but
what?
Then, I'm sorry, go on.
I'm so sorry. I just saw an article about the Sahara Desert. It's in Africa, correct?
Yes.
It's one of the biggest deserts in Africa. So they're getting ready to they're planting millions of trees in the Sahara Desert, which is very uncanny, very unheard of because it's desert. So it's really interesting how they're going about replanting the trees within this ecosystem. So they take like this metal pressure pipe and they stick it down into the ground and they shoot the water into the sand, and they have to do it at a certain angle. It's got to be a certain amount of water and it's got to be a certain depth within to the land. And then they just plop a little seedling, little tree into it. And over a couple hundred years, all of these trees are going to rehabitate and take over the Sahara Desert, which I find very, very interesting. Um, when you're talking about population, I guess my first question is like you hear a lot of billionaires, somebody like a Elon Musk, and he's saying that the world is overpopulated. Do you agree? Do you really think that the earth is overpopulated? And then my second question is like you although the earth may or may not be overpopulated, there's not enough cattle, right? To feed every single household. So like what are they doing in order to increase the rate of cattle being raised in order to feed multitude of people?
Yeah. From the standpoint of the world being overpopulated, that's above my pay grade right now. It's putting strain on the earth resources. We can see that. It's putting some strain on the earth resources. There's been some people that said the ocean have already produced the maximum amount of fish that they will produce. Some people have already said that the soil in the Mississippi Delta has already met maximum production. 160 bushel of corn per acre, 80 bushel of soybean. So there are some people that are saying these type things. But from the standpoint of, and I think that's where the new technology will come into play. I think the ingenuity and the mind and the concept that we have as human, we have the ability to come up with new strategies and new techniques. And That is what I'm seeing somewhere in the research lab at colleges and universities. It's what I'm beginning to see with, using different type of equipment. Right now in cities throughout America and even on farms here in Oklahoma, they're using what we call high tones to grow garden.
Now, what is a high tunnel?
That is just a building looks somewhat like a greenhouse that's covered with plastic, which allows the farmer to go in and plant their vegetables early in the winter, and then also will allow them to be able to grow the vegetables later through the winter. So they will be able to start their vegetables growing in last of February. Whereas if you did not have the high tone, you would have to wait until April till the soil temperature and everything get warm enough for it to germinate. So with the high tone, because the plastic collects the heat, it will have the heat there to germinate those plants, which allows it to be able to get out and start the growing season, 4 weeks earlier, more or less. Like I say, you can have tomatoes all the way up to November, December in these high tones if managed properly. So those are being produced, being installed, and being done throughout America and throughout the world. A lot of vacant warehouses that was in Cleveland, Detroit, Memphis, New York, they have grown. They've been converted into areas where you're able to grow plants. They have hydroponics and aquaponics and everything. Disney, and I tell students all the time, you talk about agriculture. Agriculture is at Disney. When you go to the Magic Kingdom or you go to Epcot, agriculture is there because Disney is growing their own food. They don't buy food. Disney produce their own food for all of their amusement parks and everything.
Why? I never knew that. That's so interesting.
Well, because how many people come to Disney eat? So they were buying all of that to come in, and they had to pay for it. So they felt it's cheaper to go out and produce it themselves.
So if the apocalypse or a zombie takeover broke out, because the first thing people do during a zombie takeover is they go and loot and they go shoot, right? If I was in Florida, it'd be smart for me to go to Disney and go get me some of that free produce down there. That's what I'm hearing.
Well, I'm not describing someone to go and loot or anything like that.
Well, when we get the looting, they get the shooting.
Well, that's why I'm not ascribing to it. But the same way Disney's doing, same way people can do it in their own backyard.
You know what?
They can do it in their own backyard. So you don't need a whole 200 or 300 acres. You don't even need 15 or 20 acres. You become self-sufficient in your own backyard, more or less.
I love that you said that because I was thinking about this new technology that I've been seeing where people are growing vertically, right? Sidebar. So I've been hearing people, they've been traveling all up north. I ain't been up north too much. I'm a southern gal. So they say when you go to New York, everything is not spaced outwards, everything is up because it saves room, right? So they're growing their plants like in these cylinder like containers. They got all these little holes in it and it goes up, and they growing this stuff by the buttload, right? And then they have like a sprinkler system within it, and you just get to see the people just grow all this stuff. But that's for big money. That's for people that got that big money. See, for the po folks, you got to get you a nice container, good bucket, good box. And see, that's how I grew my first set of sweet potatoes. You get that good bucket and you put them little sprouts up in that bucket, and you will come August, you have about 4-5 sweet potatoes in there.
Yeah. And it's true. You don't have to adapt what they're doing across the population, but here in rural, that's why I say, if you go out and get your 10 by 10 foot square piece of property in your own backyard, you'll be surprised how much food you're able to produce.
Well, everybody doesn't have access to a backyard. People that live in apartments and stuff. So I think that's one of the beautiful things about technology, things like TikTok and stuff. You are literally seeing people growing stuff like
containers,
glass jars, like for propagating and stuff like that. And then people have lemon trees and stuff like that in their backyard, but it takes again 100 years to grow a very successful lemon tree. It's a wild peach tree back there in my mama backyard, baby. We've been tearing them up since I was a little girl. Honeysuckle too.
Yeah, it will. If all a person has to do is open up their mind. Like you talk about TikTok, it's right there on your YouTube. A lot of it's right, is right there. And you have colleges and universities. You have land grant universities, extension agents that share this information with homeowners, with landowners, to teach them how to do this. But from the standpoint of the world being overpopulated, are we able to sustain and feed ourselves? I think we will. And there's some new, different type growing techniques, products, and like it's talking about, the cattle and stuff like this. Well, cattle is more of a Western cultural animal. If you go back east, Africa and other places
and
like
Asia.
that. Asia, a lot of time, goat. A lot of people use goat because goat meat is the most widely consumed meat in the world. And because goat don't take that much land, in order they are browsers, so they eat bush and brush and stuff. They're able to navigate the steep terrain. So maybe somewhere along the way and we have farmers here in this area that are transitioning from livestock to goat. So sometimes we may have to change our mindset and become adaptable to other things.
Why do you think that it is so important to be able to grow your own produce like at home?
First of all, it's therapeutic to a certain extent.
It is.
It gives you a sense of self-worth. This is what I've done. I was able to do this myself. You can see it. You can watch it. Also, it's fresh. Had not been on a truckman ship 500 or 600, 700 miles, to come to Kroger's. And, it's quality, it doesn't have the chemicals on it. Oftentimes, you know what you're putting on it and everything. So, to me, you are in control of your food that you will consume. And, it's a wholesome type thing. My daughter told me one time she had bought a cabbage, and she would cut the cabbage up and everything. But then she said a farmer brought her a cabbage out of his garden. And she said, "Dad, when I got ready to cut, I almost cut my hand."
She didn't realize it wasn't tough.
Realized it wasn't tough. But that cabbage, the reason it was tough, it has been
pesticides and all this stuff on top of
also some of it had been hybrid because they want to make those cabbage
as big as possible
down there to be able to be on that truck for 700 miles and not necessarily be bruised or damaged. So that cabbage has been somewhat engineered to be tough so that it will be able to withstand that truck drive from Florida to Tupelo and still look fresh. Washington red ripe tomatoes, they're picked green and sprayed
with pesticides. See, I really want to talk about it though, because number one, I seen an article the other day. It's summertime, so they've been taking bites in a watermelon. The watermelon got a rubbery texture to it, and they don't know what it is. They say it ain't fruit, so they scared to eat it. Then you go to get you an apple or something, you got to soak the apple and you take a bite into it. They say it's wax on top of that apple. They say, what's the wax of film here? I ain't supposed to be digesting that. That ain't normal. See, then you get with the chicken, and they say that's the reason why all these boys here so big. They look 18 when they just 6.5 years old. It's because of the proteins and the products they put on their chicken. See there. And then people, when they travel outside of America, they talk about how they lose weight because, our FDA is completely different from what they got over in Europe. I just want to know why. Is it capitalism? Is that the true root of the answer?
capitalism, is what not only America is built on, but what the world is built on.
It's the mecca of capitalism, no.
And not arguing that point, maybe, but yeah, it's not going to go away. Okay, what you're talking about is not going to go away because here you go back to that 9.5 billion people. People say, well, it need to be organically grown. You're not going to be able to feed the world if you don't have pesticides and herbicides.
We're not mad at the pesticides and the herbicides. We mad that when we go and eat us a pallet of rice, we gain 15 pounds. We mad because we swallowing all types of mess. And like, I feel like it's greed and capitalism.
Yeah. Well, it's not going to go away. However, how you may be able to come back, going back to what we were talking about. Start growing your own pots, your own containers. Instead of going and buying this tomato, you'll just walk into your living room and snatch it off and everything. Because
I be doing that. I be stealing stuff so I can grow it at home.
But we need to get more people. Again, back in the 30s and the 40s and 50s, that's what people had. They were self-sustainable. Then, as the world's globalization started, that's when you start having a globalization of food. But you can make it just by taking care of yourself, because it's there used to be dairy farms in Monroe County, in Clay County,
Mississippi,
and Chickasaw County,
Mississippi,
yeah, in Kentucky. But there are in dairy farms around. So now the milk is concentrated in 2 or 3 different large places that put on a tanker truck and shipped all over the nation. So we've allowed, as we have gone to Alcorn or gone to Mississippi State or gone to Ole Miss and got our degrees, our thing is we want to move to the city. We want the city life and everything. So what are you giving up by having that city life?
Fresh food, access to fresh food, access to be able to grow your own food.
Yeah, you're giving up your independence to a certain extent. Giving up your independence.
Is one last question I wanted to talk to you about on this particular question. I got a sub question. So,
okay.
Back in the 1950s and 60s, there were a lot of community gardens, right? And as time has progressed, we have noticed the elimination of community gardens throughout a lot of like Black neighborhoods and Black communities and stuff. They said, and I ain't never witnessed nothing like that. They said you'll be able to go out there and go get you some fresh apples and stuff like that. What happened? What do you think happened to stuff like that?
I don't know. And because, like I said, I grew up in the 50s and the 60s.
Did you see the community gardens and such?
No, I didn't. Because I grew up in an area where I grew up in rural Mississippi, so everyone had their own property. So the community had their own garden. Now, there was times where you would share, things out of your garden with someone else's and stuff. But from the standpoint, I know in, my years growing up, I did not see that. But in Kentucky, there were several community gardens there. So families would go out and say, hey, this is going to be, the county will go on their property. They will allow people to just go out and have a, 30 by 40 acre plot or 100 by 20 acre plot to have their own, garden. So I guess in certain places that still happened. It was somewhat thriving when, before I left Kentucky, up in the area that I lived, and it was very, very popular. We even worked with a community garden, where we call it a neighborhood garden, within the inner city of the town that I lived in. My wife and I and some other people went out and we just started a garden. It was about 70 by 30. That was the size of it. And we brought in kids from the neighborhood, and they were right by a basketball court. It was over in a city park, but the garden was inside the city park. So people actually would come and work in the garden as they were playing basketball and stuff, and the kids learn, and we were trying to teach them about soil and water and stuff like this. And that was very very successful. And we were taking harvest apart, the green beans and the turnips and the tomatoes, and give it to the old elderly people in the neighborhood. And one of the things I remember, we gave one lady some green beans, and like in July, and I saw her at church in February. And
she canned them.
She canned them.
Yeah.
She told me, she said, Mr. Jones, I had some of those green beans you gave me. I said, green beans you gave me? What? Then the dome, she said, I canned them. And that is a lost part also.
Yeah, making preservatives.
Well, we consume everything that we produce now. So back in the 40s and the 50s and 60s, people grew it, then they canned it or they froze it so that they would have something to carry them through the winter. I tell people sometimes right now we're somewhat of a grasshopper mentality.
What's that?
Grasshopper mentality, you just live for the summer. You don't put up anything for the wintertime. That's why you don't see many grasshoppers during the wintertime, because they don't store away. I like to be like the ant.
Oh, they die in the wintertime?
They die, they go away, they go down into holes, and so they don't die, they go away. And
they around my house, they gonna die.
They'll come back.
They gonna die. I'm stump them out. They don't call me Bigfoot for nothing.
Well, you can't stomp all of them out.
Who can't? As long as I got 2 feet, I'm gonna stomp them out.
Okay. But I think if everyone just get back to, hey, you talk about those chickens and what they're feeding the chickens and everything. So every time you go someplace, I don't eat chicken.
You don't eat no chicken?
No, I don't eat chicken.
You worse than the Muslims.
Oh, well, no. I don't know about that either, but again, when we were growing up, people talking about free range chicken now, free range chicken.
Them chickens
That's
ain't
what we
free-range
had.
no more.
That's what your grandmother had, free
I know she
range
did.
chicken. It's just a new term for an old way of producing food.
Them chickens ain't free range no more. They lined up.
Well, some of the people that's getting into the modern agriculture, they have free range chicken where they fence them in and just let them walk around and stuff like this.
You must ain't seen the stuff I seen. Like, they got different techniques to put animals to sleep before they slaughter them. If you like scare a cow some before you kill them, you supposed to give like a hug or create a simulation for a hug to make them calm down. I seen these folks in these big companies, they pick the cow up and they put it into some type of blanket and squeeze it real close till it calm down, cut the joker head off. Now we got beef patties and stew and hamburgers and rib. Oh, rib don't come from no cow. I don't know. I just don't like it. Like, I understand what the animal lovers be talking about, because it be very cruel. And I feel like a lot of those large institutions be lying about being cruelty free when it comes to like killing animals for us to, eat. And then there's a lot of studies that talk about how the way that animals die, it impacts the meat. So if the cow was scared before he died, then the meat, I guess, tastes scary. I don't know. If he was a happy cow before he died, then it tastes nice. That's what the science say,
Yeah, well, there are different ideas on those type things, but eventually, if you get hungry enough and the meat's on the plate, you're going to eat it.
Okay, I eat me a petrified cow if I got to, boy.
No, in the real world, it comes back to, all right. If you need it, if it's there, you're going to consume it more or less.
You guys don't find it suspicious that absolutely no one is talking about the amount of food that has been recalled in the U.S. in the last week alone? When I tell you nothing is safe to eat, I mean this shit is above us at this point. And I find it very weird that no one's talking about it. No news channels. I have heard nothing. I literally had to go and research this on my own. But let me give you some of the things that have been recalled in the U.S. this week alone that could potentially cause cancer or kill you. which is why it's being recalled. So, you know the term fast food can kill you? It turns out it's not just because of the fatty sugars and unbelievable amount of bullshit in it, but now it comes to find out that a lot of soft drinks that fast food restaurants have been using have a product that has a cancer-causing dye. And the brand name is cola products. And it is used as a base for a lot of sodas, pink lemonades, and things of that nature in fast food restaurants in the US. I don't know what's weirder, the fact that you have heard nothing of this, or the fact that they are not specifying what cola products is and what drinks uses them. But for now, they are saying that it only includes about 4 sodas, which I find hard to believe. But if you look at the headline, it clearly says soda company recalls multiple drinks sold in restaurants across US that contain dye linked to cancer. Bet you didn't know crab meat was recalled. Or how about the 20,000 pounds of beef sold in Oregon and 3 other states that has been recalled? Or the 800,000 units of cream cheese sold under various brands recalled for salmonella. Oops. Just 2 days ago, potatoes were also recalled. That you wanted a cucumber? Nope, it's on recall as of 4 days ago. Candy is also on recall by the FDA, of course. Want to season your food? Hell no. Black pepper is on recall for salmonella. Last but not least, bottled water is on recall. So if you are a little thirsty, oh well.
What is environmental racism and how has it impacted small impoverished Black communities like Jackson, Mississippi and Atlanta, Georgia, in terms of agricultural practices and environmental hazards?
Oh gosh, environmental racism happens throughout the whole total landscape. This is not new. Nothing new.
Actually, I would argue that it is new.
Okay.
So environmental racism refers to the disproportionate exposure of marginalized racial and ethnic communities to environmental hazards, pollutants, resulting in adverse health, quality of life impacts. So oftentimes when I talk to Black people, especially older Black people, they always say there's nothing new up under this sun. This is a very new concept, and I feel like environmental racism debunks that, because if there was no such thing as global warming, or global warming, there would be no such thing as environmental racism, especially if race is a relatively new factor. Like race was invented like in the 1600s. Race is new. Then environmental racism is a new concept, and the worsening of it keeps getting worse and worse as the environment gets worse and worse.
Okay. I can take that. However, like I say, and I'm one of those older people say there's nothing new under the sun. Okay. When you look at the environmental situation standpoint, go all the way back to flooding situation. Flooding. Go back and look at the flood of 1927 in Mississippi and Greenville and what happened there.
Man, the Honorable Louis Farrakhan got on Mississippi ass about that flood.
Okay, but that that's why I say it's nothing new. It's happened before. Also from the standpoint of having people where you build subdivision, where you build houses, where you sell land for someone to put a subdivision. Oftentimes back in the 30s and 40s, oftentimes that land was in low-lying areas. So they would go in and build homes, Black people homes in the low-lying area. So when it rained, they got flooded. Or when it rained, even if you didn't get flooded, your water was staying in your yard. So then it became a place for mosquitoes to populate. So when they built the interstate highway system, instead of going, a mile to the west, they went a mile to the east, came right through Black farms or Black neighborhood. They came and put overpasses within their Black neighborhood, New Orleans, Overtown in Miami. So again, when you talk about environmental racism type thing, That's what I'm referring to. It has happened, and it's still happening.
It's getting worse.
But those are the type thing. And oftentimes, agriculture somewhat was part of it. The federal government was part of it because the Department of Transportation knew what they were doing when they were building the interstate highway system, how they did that.
See, we're still advocating on behalf of Flint, Michigan, who still does not have justifiably clean water. Then last year we had the issue within Jackson, Mississippi, who did not have clean water. And now recently we just had this issue in Georgia, Atlanta, Georgia, where they're creating Cop City and they were irrigating Atlanta's water into Cop City, and something happened where the main line broke and there was no water in Atlanta for a very unjustifiably long time.
Right.
And I guess the question is how or to what extent does it impact these small impoverished cities? Because that's the one thing that all three of these cities have in common is that they have extremely high Black populations.
Okay, and I guess what you're saying is true, but also I think that's a failure to go back in and invest in your infrastructure.
Very much so. That was the key issue within Jackson, Mississippi. They had not updated the piping system since the 40s.
Well, and it's not going to last forever. When you put those pipes in the ground, you put them in the ground with the soil. Soil has different chemicals in it, so they're going to erode. They're going to deteriorate. And I think that basically a lot of city officials have not paid much attention to the type of soil that they're putting these different underground system in. So some soil are higher in chemical that's going to make it erode or corrode easier. So you're going to have more pipe bursting and stuff. So I think when you look at city planning, city maintenance, city infrastructure, not only you have to look at the water, but you have to look at the soil, at the pipe that's carrying and transporting this water, what that is, and how that interacts with the plastic or with the metal. Because soil will break down. It will break down anything. It will break down anything over a period of time. So I just don't think that these cities or these places really had a plan to go back in and improve their infrastructure. We see it now. There, the bridges, collapsing. You see it, dams possibly breaking. So we built all these structures, but then we didn't come back in and build in the type of maintenance. Go in and maintain them every 20 years, every 25 years.
Are they neglecting these cities because they're Black, though? I remember in 2004 during Hurricane Katrina, that was the thing that really put Kanye in the map. George Bush does not care about Black people because during the Katrina hurricane, George Bush was out playing golf like all the rich white men do. So are they being neglected and looked over, in your opinion, because these communities are majority Black? Because you have a lot of communities that are full of very rich, wealthy white people, and they don't have these sorts of issues. I know it's because they have more income, so they're paying more taxes to those cities, but yet it's still the responsibility of the government to maintain the water system. So what are your thoughts?
Well, I think they are impacting the Black community more heavily now. But I think the reasons for that is that as the Black community, as Blacks started moving into some of these cities and some of those neighborhoods, then it come because of white flight. So they left these places and went out and started new places. They built new cities that the white left the inner city, or not necessarily inner city, but the city, and went out into the suburbs or the rural area. So by doing that, building these new areas, then they put in new pipe. They didn't have to worry about the pipe that had been there for 50 years. So now the pipe's going to Palm Springs. It's new. So everyone's going to go out there because they don't have to worry about pipe bursting. That makes sense?
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it left. And then once they did that, then new companies, grocery store, new businesses went there. And they are now coming into the Flint or the Jackson because of the fact that they don't have good infrastructure. So now the tax base is going to be less. So the tax base is going over there. So they don't have they're generating less revenue in order again to go in and maintain the infrastructure. They're generating less revenue in order to keep the school. They're generating less revenue to be able to hire more policemen to keep crime down. So the white flight is one of the reasons why a lot of these cities are somewhat experiencing what they're experiencing now.
I'm born and raised here in Atlanta, and all I'm going to say is Atlanta has never had the infrastructure for that many people to live downtown, to physically live in the city. Even people in Atlanta who say, I'm from the city, we not living on 17th Street and on 10th Street, and we not living on Peachtree and shit. We in the Bluff, in Bankhead, and on the east side. That's still Atlanta. There's a water crisis because they're trying to find a way to integrate the plumbing for Cop City without taking away or funneling in filthy water to Atlanta residents. And we know which one they chose. They are going to redirect Atlanta's main reservoir, the one that's right over there by Marietta Street. They're going to redirect all of that to Cop City. And so when people from Atlanta say quit moving here, it's not a we hate y'all thing. Atlanta's always run off of culture, connection, and consistency. But what it is y'all have to be honest. Atlanta is not a product. And this is why in marketing, I always talk about consumer liability. Atlanta is not a product. Do not get it made up in your mind that you are going to come to Atlanta and become a superstar and become Beyonce. Yes, it is a black mecca because it is a hub and a safe space for black culture. With that being said, y'all have quite literally invaded Atlanta. And the people who made it such a cultural mecca, the people who initiated a lot of the fun and a lot of the stuff that drew people here, because we don't have the infrastructure to support this many people, those people have been pushed to the side. Those people are no longer able to provide the experiences that Atlanta has always had. Before there was a water crisis, Atlanta has been in a housing crisis for the last 4 years, and no one was talking about it. Other black people were moving into Atlanta, taking homes from families being evicted, and they weren't being evicted because they couldn't pay rent. They were being evicted because Atlanta homeowners realized how many people were moving to the city and what they could get for them homes. So when we talk about acknowledging Atlanta's water crisis and the lack of infrastructure in the city, make sure we are also acknowledging gentrification does not begin and end with race. I have seen more black people move to this city and start businesses that other black people can't shop at, don't feel comfortable going to. So who is your target audience? One of the blackest things about my city was in order to drive into the city of Atlanta, you had to pass the biggest so-so deaf entertainment billboard. And I know you're thinking, what does that have to do with what you're talking about? It has to do with the roots of a city being literally cut from under them. That's why it's crazy to me that Kendrick Lamar, being from the West Coast, could see it, and our own favorite Atlanta rappers never have acknowledged it. People come to Atlanta, they rob and pillage our culture, y'all take away our food, y'all take away our artists, everything, and then you go back to wherever you're from talking about Atlanta is trash and Atlanta is ratchet. No, Atlanta is full. We are over capacity. There is no space for the true essence of Atlanta culture to be seen. And if we're going to talk about this water crisis, then let's keep talking about the housing crisis. Let's keep talking about when they opened the Mercedes-Benz Stadium, they closed 121 homeless shelters. Let's talk about that when I proposed to turn the Water Boys into a project, give them 6 weeks, give them vending machines, help them start a business. The city of Atlanta told me it was too much of a liability because they didn't have faith in these kids. So this goes back to when I said calm down, mama. When I said what's happening in Palestine and in the Congo, when it begins to happen in cities like Atlanta and like Houston and like Detroit, we as black folk are going to want the rest of the world to stand with us when in real life, we not standing for shit. I'm out of breath now.
What advice would you give to young African Americans interested in pursuing careers in this industry?
I would tell them that my experience is that it's a tremendous industry to go into. The diversity of it There are jobs out there. I think Purdue University did a study somewhere around 2017, 2018. At that time, said there's about 50,000 jobs in the agricultural industry each year that goes unfilled. So the opportunities are out there. I just had a niece to graduate from Alcorn in 2022 in agribusiness. She's working for a large transportation company dealing with grain. And she's already right now, just been out of school 2 years, already making six figures. You necessarily don't do it because of the money, but there are just tremendous opportunities.
I'm telling you, I ain't come across no farmer that didn't have a couple dollars on him. I said I was gonna come down here and meet me one of them.
But they always, there's always something that you can do. But if you're interested in agriculture, I would encourage the students, and we talk to them. I try to talk to them in the 6th, 7th, 8th grade, make them aware about the opportunities in agriculture. But also, I want to make them aware that hey, you need to take as much science classes as you can, much chemistry, biology, because all of those are what you need in agriculture. You need to learn about microbiology because you may become a food inspector. So you need to know about E. coli, Cryptosporidium, Listeria. So you need to know that. Agriculture is such a dynamic field that even now, that if they say there's a E. coli outbreak at a restaurant in Tupelo, Mississippi, and they say, well, they can be able to go back and find where that lettuce came from and when it was picked in the field and where the field was. So agriculture, make sure that we have a good, safe food supply. If there's something contaminated, we can go back and be able to find it and take those off the shelf. You get all the time recall on ground beef or chicken or something like this because they've identified that may be salmonella. So they want to take it off the shelf.
You definitely just reminded me of George Washington Carver, and there's somebody we were talking about earlier before we started recording the show. For those who don't know, George Washington Carver started off as a very young boy. He was very spiritually in tune, and they said he would go out into the garden and he would be out there with the plants and he would be talking to God, learning, experimenting. George Washington Carver, he got bullied because he had such a high voice, but a lot of people didn't know that he was castrated at a very young age, but that did not stop his mind. He created over, I want to say 200 different types of inventions, which does include peanut butter. And it just shows you how intelligent you have to be in order to go into a field like this, and is very well versed. I just wanted to hear your thoughts on it.
Well, without a doubt, Carver is a genius. Like I say, a lot of young men and young women, sometimes I put a picture of him up on the screen and they don't even recognize him. They don't recognize him. But Carver basically started the peanut industry because of the fact that when he came to Tuskegee, he was doing research to boll weevil. So he knew about trying to get people out of a monocultural type situation. He should grow cotton. So he started growing peanuts. And when he got convicted farmers to grow the peanuts, he said, well, they're growing all the peanuts. They have to have a market to sell it. So that's when he went back in and started looking at research on what he can do. The soybeans are here because of Carver. And we don't give him enough credit. Someone made, and I thought it was interesting, to say, Wheaties or Procter & Gamble, the peanut butter, never had his picture on it. Never have anything on it about him. So we must tell that story about Carver, about what Tuskegee, did, and our HBCUs and some of the contributions that they made. Let us not forget those. And because they call him the plant doctor. He was a botanist, and our state university where he got his degree from. So we need to look at those type individuals. And right now in the state of Mississippi, some of the people that's leading USDA agencies are all African Americans. So agriculture, has come a long way, and I'm proud of have been a part of it.
Shout out to the slaves.
Yeah, shout out to the slaves. You feel me? Shout out to Harriet Tubman. That
Shout
was
out
my
to she's
bitch.
a real nigga.
Yeah, shout out to them Mississippi niggas. Yeah, shout out to them Mississippi niggas. Yeah, big penitentiary tractor dragging ass niggas. Yeah. And they don't talk loud. They whisper. Dangerous niggas whisper.
And shout out again to all those people who hate my guts.
Y'all are doing a justice and an effort to the world. Keep breaking these men down one at a time.
Shout out LGBTQ.
You are obsessed and sick.
And we are back with the big black shout out, the blackest shout out in the world. For those who do not know, the big black shout out is an opportunity to help circulate the black dollar back into our communities and for audience members to explore black owned hidden gems. Now, Mr. Jones, who would you like to give a shout out today?
I would like to give a shout out to Tupelo Wheels. It's a black owned business on McCullough Street in Tupelo, Mississippi. Mr. Walter Partlow. And he deals, sell wheels and sell tires, and you know, black people love automobiles. So he is one of the first persons I met that has his own tire shop, and so that's my shout out from the standpoint of a professional, Dr. Vernon Rayford, Dr. Nancy Hook, Dr. Sylvia Blanchard, all the medical doctors that I feel safe going into getting a diagnosis and letting them write me on prescriptions. And from the standpoint of places to eat, you know, Aunt B's, there on Green Street in Tupelo, and JT's in Okolona, great places to eat. And gosh, from the standpoint of the barbershop, barbers in Tupelo have a lot of black barbers.
What about your business? You don't want to give your business a shout out?
My business. Well, I wanted to yield to someone else, but yeah, I give my business a shout out. Our business is called Genera 16 Enterprises. Genera 16 Enterprises, and that name comes from my mother and father. My mother was named Geneva, my father was named Ira, and the 16 represents the 16 children that was in the family.
Whew.
So we have our own business. The farm is part of the LLC that we own. And we also provide training from the standpoint of workforce training, civil rights training, ethics. We also work with USDA and trying to inform and educate students about careers in agriculture and opportunities in agriculture. So as a result of our business over the last 2 years, we've influenced 40 students to go to Alcorn, Mississippi State, Alabama A&M, Florida A&M, major in agriculture. So we are just beginning, and again, we're just working to try to dispel that myth that agriculture is a demeaning type of work. It doesn't take much brain to do it, but I tell you what, it takes a lot of brain
and a lot of grit,
a lot of tenacity, and a lot of confidence. It's a powerful profession.
All righty. Well, thank you for that. Now, if you or someone that you know owns a black business and you would like a shout out, make sure you're reaching out to me at the Afrocentric Podcast at gmail.com. Mr. John, I really enjoyed recording this episode with you. A message from Farmer John. I feel like it has the potential to teach a lot of people about agriculture and agribusiness, especially down here in the South. Is there anything you'd like to say to the black community before I let you go?
I would just like to say, hey, continue to believe in yourself, believe in your sisters and your brothers. We are great people. We are greater than what people think we are. And I just want to encourage everyone to become involved in the political process, register to vote. And if you haven't voted, then you go on out and register to vote, because that's where a lot of changes will take place.
Thank you. Mr. John, I want to thank you for choosing to be Afrocentric today. And for my listening audience, I want to thank you guys. Thank you so much for choosing to be Afrocentric today. Please remember that Black Lives Matter. Make sure to listen and protect Black women and children. And remember that the only thing that you must do in this lifetime is be Black and die. And remember, here at the Afrocentric Podcast, we're just civilized people having civilized conversations. We'll talk to you guys soon. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
We are farmers, bum 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 bum.